Thank you, Kyron. All right, so new this year, right, is the work-based learning data collection. And its primary focus is to eventually be used for measures for the CCI. And so it was announced that there was going to be a work-based learning file a year ago at least. I know it was more than a year ago. Certainly this time last year, I was aware of it. Those specific measures were introduced or announced in the communications from June of last year. And then in the fall, I know Flash 184 kind of gave even more detail what to expect from the work-based learning. And the reason why I'm recounting the different resources and trying to remember the dates is because CalPADS is ever changing, the data collection is ever growing. And so being able to know the information, where to find different information, signing up for the listserv or multiple listservs can be useful, because as documents are introduced or as data collections and legislation changes that influence the data collection, you can start preparing locally for what's to come. And so again, the WBLR is new this year, but something will be new next year and the year after next, so on and so forth. And you can expect, I've heard Brandy say that although end of year one isn't exactly collecting transcripts, she wouldn't be surprised if it goes that way. So you can only expect the data collection to grow in importance. So the work-based learning data is required for those districts, those LEAs that have grades 9 through 12, right? And it allows these students to demonstrate their preparedness as far as the CCI indicator in the California School Dashboard. We initially started with 12 work-based learning types. There's now 11. And the file type is full replacement, meaning it's just like the course or the student course or the SETE. If you submit records through a batch file upload, any previous record in CalPADS with the same operational key will be overwritten, right? And so you just want to be aware of that. If you have to make a change to one record or add one student, you may opt not to do that using a data submission, or you can do it in data submission, but submit all of them in addition to that one record that changed. Okay, so this just provides a little bit of the information that I talked about on the previous slide. I think what's important to note is that the roles required are not, they're there, but they haven't been added to your accounts. So if you're the LEA administrator, you're going to have to know to add the edit role, view role, and extract WBLR roles to your account and anyone else's account that may need access or need the ability to submit the data. Likewise, if you are not an LEA administrator, please have them verify that you have these roles if you're expected to submit this data, even to view it within CalPADS. So with new functionality, you need new permissions. They need to be updated. So as I mentioned, there were 12 work-based learning types. That's why we skip from 50 to 60. There is no 55 because ROP, ROC is gone. But the remaining ones are internship, student-led enterprise, virtual simulated work-based learning, registered pre-apprenticeship program, non-registered pre-apprenticeship program, Job Corps, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Kyron referenced this in the beginning, the WIOA, Youth Build, California Conservation Corps, transition work-based experience, and transition classroom-based work learning. So you can see that those that came from the SPED file previously, I kind of mentioned them in the beginning. You probably have students, if you have grades 9 through 12 special ed students, you really want to talk to your special education staff and not just say, I don't have work-based learning, right? You probably do. And you probably do want to submit this information for the students. You may not have internships and student-led enterprises, but you probably, most likely, I would think most likely you have some students, if you have special ed students that are in some type of transition work-based learning experience or classroom-based work exploration. And so in addition to the work-based learning type, there are additional fields that you would submit information for. Most of these are related to internships. There's the internship ID, work-based learning hours, external, state course code embedded work-based learning, internship employer performance, internship sponsored indicator, internship certificated supervisor. So there's a couple of fields that we should talk about. The state course code embedded work-based learning. Because your curriculum, because the student's work is not work experience, it's work-based learning, right? It's connected to the classroom. And what course is this connected? So you submit the course. It's not specific to CTE course codes, or it's not specific to those that say work experience. We use that as an example in the data population, but it's just an example. It's not limited. It could be any course, right? So for instance, perhaps you have students that are in the AP course, and there's an aspect of that course in which they simulate a student-led enterprise, right? They're developing code and trying to sell it, and market their product, right? That would be an instance in where you may not necessarily have a CTE course or a work experience course. The curriculum more closely follows the AP course description or STEM course, whatever it may be, but there was a work-based learning component in the course that meets the requirements of student-led enterprise. And it could be any scenario of this, right? I want to emphasize the state course code is not, there are no validations. You can use any of them. You can submit anything in that field. And then as far as the internship employer performance evaluation code, again, this is from the employer. It says it in the title, but there have been questions about it in the past. It's not the teacher's assessment of the student as far as the course, but it's the employer's evaluation. So, and then of course, if there's internship in the title, it's conditionally required if the work-based learning type is internship. You certainly, if you have a pre-apprenticeship or transition work-based exploration, these fields are not going to be conditionally required. You don't have to populate the internship employer performance or internship LEA sponsored indicators. And so Kyron has this. Yeah.
I have a question. Will all internships be qualified for reporting?
Not all, right?
Okay.
Certainly they have to be connected to the school, just like all work is not work-based learning. And so you want to be able to go, and I thought I had it queued up.
I posted it on the chat box.
No, but you want to, that's why we bring you back to the code set, right? And you want to clear the filter, and you want to find out what the definitions of each code is.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I was able to filter for work and it came up, and then just expand.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't give me trouble, but we can expand.
And we can also refer to the work-based CCI page that.
But it would kind of describe the internship that would qualify, to Kyron's point. If you want to know if the work-based learning that your students are doing, or if why you want to know why some work experience is not included, you get the definition. You can see it's extensive. I keep expanding, it keeps getting greater and greater and greater, right? And so reviewing this may not be the easiest. There are also other resources. Kyron alluded to them.
Yeah, I just posted the link on the chat box about how, there are internships or simulated work-based learning that may not be applicable to be reported in CalPADS as part of the work-based thing.
Oh, you sent the link to the webpage?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we'll go to that in a minute, but we have the work-based learning toolkit as well. This is from the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education, not the California Department. And so it just gives you an overview. And, as a trainer, we often have to do this to get information. We're told to introduce and talk about different data collections. And so we can't solely rely on what we're provided, right? We can't be expected to be spoon-fed. You as the LEA are in the same position. And so, just to build your understanding, you go to other resources. A lot of the legislation that dictates the data collection are federal legislation. So I often like to go to the U.S. Department of Education, and you can see that there's a California source here, work-based learning, linked learning, definitions, outcomes, quality criteria here, right? And we are in collecting data section. right? And then I think there's also guidance for the state of California. Maybe it's the state strategy. We're always at the bottom. Work-based learning website, right? And so, I explore those links and I did find some useful information. Here's one of the two documents that will open up, and it just talks about the different types of work-based learning. But I like this one a little bit better. And it gives you, again, definitions of the different types of work-based learning. And you could cross-reference them with the code set, but you could kind of see, you have internships, instead of student-led enterprise, school-based enterprises. They're all along the same lines, but explicitly said in this document was the connection to the classroom. And so been there several Q&As, and there's been a lot of questions of why certain student work experience isn't considered work-based learning. In particular, one of the reasons why we're not collecting ROP, ROC, or the work experience type courses or allowance of students to leave, and it has to be connected to the curriculum. That's a key component of work-based learning in general, not just in California. And so that really helped me understand why not all work experience or all situations of students in a work environment is valuable or going to be used as a CCI measure. So I did find great use in this document. And then Kyron posted a link that Alex provided to us last training. And this is probably your best source of guidance because it's fresh, it's recent, it's from the Accountability Office, and it's the work-based learning measures. It talks about the different types of work-based learning. It gives a description of them. You can see that long definition that's in the code sets, so it's not restricted by Excel. So these are some of the resources that you have to use. When we talk about critical thinking and problem solving, certainly if you ask us why the student who leaves school at 12 o'clock to go work at McDonald's can't get credit, there's no way to describe them. They're not an internship, they're not an apprenticeship, they're not in youth build. You're trying to find out why that student doesn't meet or get credit for meeting CCI. You can ask us, but that information is here, right? You can determine that well in advance of why. And while this tells you the measures and what is collected, you can find additional information and documentation with a little bit of research as to why, and so you have the connection to curriculum, the depth of experience. This all ties into work-based learning. And so with that, I don't see any questions, and thank you, Kyron. Ready to do your certification or take a break?
We could give them a 5-minute break.